Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Well, it worked 35 years ago. Why not try it again? Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the White Sox, he ventured down to Springfield to meet with the state's illustrious legislative leaders because he wants $1 billion of public funds to develop a 60-acre complex in West Loop that would consist of a new Comiskey Park, open park spaces, apartment buildings between Roosevelt and 18th Street.
Yeah, you could take a water taxi there. There'd be a new restaurant and bar scene, all that. Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Yeah. I wonder how we being the taxpayers, we did with the $150 million in subsidies that Jerry Reinsdorf got back in the late 80s when Governor Jim Thompson cut the deal with Harold Washington after Reinsdorf had extorted them with the threat to move to Florida.
Yeah. Don't we still own $50 million on that?
I don't know offhand what the number is, but generally speaking, I think our next guest will confirm, but we can get into the details. These deals where for one hamburger today, I will gladly pay you with 2 hamburgers tomorrow doesn't really actually transpire that way with respect to taxpayers' interests. They get left holding the bag, but I know you got to keep up with the Joneses of other big cities that are financing new stadiums and ever bigger scoreboards and amenities and surrounding hotels and restaurants and entertainment, because there's no price that's too high for the bread and the circuses. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Alan Sanderson, Senior Instructional Professor in Economics at University of Chicago. He is an authority on sports economic issues such as these. Professor Sanderson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, glad to do it.
So how did we do on Comiskey Park 2.0 back in the late 80s to present?
Well, if you go even back a little further than that, when we basically moved the ballpark from the north side of 35th Street to the south side, I think most everyone would argue that it was not a good investment, either for private developers or public funds. In general, sports facilities tend not to be good investments.
And I mean, why is that? It's just sort of the classic government is not the best allocator of scarce resources.
Well, yeah, and then I guess I tend to put them on a spectrum. I would put football on one end of that spectrum and probably something like the United Center on the other end of the spectrum. For instance, with football, you can't make it pay because it's used so little of the time. You play, 10 home games a year or something like that. Baseball is kind of in the middle of that, and then if you move to a facility like the United Center that hosts both an NBA and NHL team, you can make that pay. Madison Square Garden, for example, in New York, it probably operates 225, 250 nights a year. That's not hard to make it pay. But baseball, again, is kind of in the middle. More and more, probably again led by football, is driven by television. Probably 75 or 80% of the Bears' revenue, and the same for all of the NFL teams. 75 or 80% of the revenue is television.
Well, and the Bears are competing too for taxpayer-funded, help. So
Yes.
if they gave it to Reinsdorf, wouldn't they have to give it to the Bears, to the McCaskies?
Well,
Like, who's going to beg harder?
Or the fire or whoever's next in line to get the subsidy.
Yeah, how did Bridgeview do with the Chicago Fire Stadium?
I don't know. I have complete ignorance on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
Whether or not, Yeah, it's whether or not Americans will ever watch soccer.
Well,
Okay,
no,
that's
or
what
should.
subject
They
that
shouldn't.
you
But so the other thing that's sort of interesting too is we have this Illinois Sports Facilities Authority that was created around the time of Jerry Reinsdorf's last shakedown for the purpose of selling bonds to finance these stadiums backed by the taxpayers, of course. So explain that process and why do it that way rather than directly underwriting these stadiums if the government was so inclined.
Again, good question, and I don't really know the answer to that. I am struck with this recent proposal, not the most recent, say, of I want $1 billion, but a lot of the other things have been going on in recent months, because the White Sox, and again, I'm a University of Chicago faculty member, and I live in Hyde Park, and probably by location more than anything else, I'm part of a White Sox season ticket group, so I'm not anti-sports or anti-White Sox. But 2023 had to be on the field and off one of the worst seasons I've ever seen for a professional franchise. It was downright embarrassing.
Yeah.
If somebody had offered me free tickets to the game, I would say no thanks. The price is too high.
Right.
I just.
Well, right. No, I mean, I'm a diehard Sox fan too, so I feel your pain. So and I agree with you.
When you lose 100 games a year, that's not a good starting place to say, oh, by the way, I'd like $1 billion.
No, and it's not a great fan. I mean, it's the stadium's gotten a lot better since they sort of redid it after they did it, but it's just not a great fan experience in the neighborhood. And so one of the arguments would be, and this is sort of, I think, the same thinking for the Bears, thinking of Arlington Heights. Well, if we could do something like a Wrigleyville, if we could do something like they did in California with SoFi Stadium and have a sort of entertainment community built around it, then we can make it make sense. And to my point, which would be say, well, if you can do that, great. And if you can make it make sense, then do it yourself and leave taxpayers alone.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with you. I mean, even with Arlington Heights, I mean, one of the things that happens there is what we discovered was people like to bet on horse races. They just don't want to watch them. And the word, certainly, if I think about the NFL playoffs and going forward into next year, college ball as well, is, I mean, the magic word is streaming. That it's just going to be more and more being put on that platform or platforms.
Well, unless maybe I don't know. Maybe if we could get Taylor Swift to dump Travis Kelce and
date who?
Yeah,
Who's
I don't
eligible on? Oh, maybe Komet.
I don't really know who's married and who's not on the Sox. So yeah, but I mean, we need something like that to happen. We need a romance that captures our hearts the way that Travis and Taylor have. Maybe that could be built into the price somehow. No, so if you're a legislator and Jerry Reinsdorf comes knocking and the McCaskies. Probably they don't come to the state. They really just want property tax relief at the local level. But any owner of any professional sports franchise comes knocking, and they threaten you and say, well, we're going to take the Sox and we're going to go to St. Petersburg or something like I threatened 35 years ago. If you don't do it, what do you say? You don't want to lose the Sox, just like Chicago doesn't want to lose the Bears.
Well, I think you can bet on the fact that the Reinsdorfs have been shopping the Sox around. They may deny it, or they may be more serious in one area than another. But if they got a better deal out of state, they'd be gone before the opening day.
Alan Sanderson, Senior Instructional Professor in Economics at University of Chicago and authority on sports economics issues. As we were discussing, Professor Sanderson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, glad to. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Sick and tired of achy joints? Dread the idea of surgery? Well, you need to call QC Kinetics. Hi, it's Amy Jacobson. Listen, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids, cortisone shots, surgery are no longer your only options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. Knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain? From our